There's a story that Jesus shares with us that's very similar to a popular Jewish folktale, with its roots traced back to Egypt. A story of a rich man and a poor man whose fortunes are completely reversed after death. Now, out of all the parables that Jesus shares with us, there's only one where he names any of his characters. In Luke's gospel, he tells us of a character by the name of Lazarus, who was a poor beggar. Now, Lazarus, his name literally means he whom God helps. Lazarus isn't the type of individual that we would think of when we think of someone that God helps. In this parable, Jesus tells us that Lazarus had sores all over his body. And the dogs of the city, they would go through the garbage all day. They would come and they would lick his open wounds. Well, that's not the type of person that we think of when we think of someone whom God helps. Isn't someone whom God helps supposed to be more like, well, the rich man? We don't think of someone who drives the same kind of car as us as being rich. But compared to the rest of the world, compared to the man whose livelihood depends on what he finds in the garbage, they are rich. They are very rich. So Jesus never identifies the name of the rich man. Sometimes he's referred to as Dives, which literally translates into Latin as rich man. Maybe we're not told his name because we're supposed to plug ourselves into the story. And we're not supposed to look at the life that the rich man lived and think of how could he be so foolish? But instead, we're supposed to think, how am I like this rich man? And who are my Lazaruses that I'm bypassing on a daily, a weekly, or even a monthly basis? Now, we all know rich people who fit the identity of the rich man in this story. They're so wealthy, yet they refuse to help others. Now, Jesus may not give us the name of the rich man in this story, but he does give us some interesting details. Jesus lets us know that the rich man is not just rich, he's very rich. A purple wool mantle was costly. A finely woven linen tunic was considered the height of luxury. The rich man, he had it all. Man even had a gate to his home. Lazarus knew that if he just camped outside of the rich man's gate, there'd be some benefits to it. Because the rich man had so much food that he would be wasteful with it. In fact, Jesus even uses the phrase that Lazarus longed to eat from what fell from the rich man's table. Basically, Lazarus, if he could just get his hands on the rich man's garbage, he'd have some tasty food to eat.
You're a hurricane in a deadly spin. The way you move is dangerous. You take me to the edge of trust, but I'll have faith even if your way is dangerous. In the darkness.
So I was reading the newspaper today, and there's this story of this young urban explorer from Detroit who for fun likes to take pictures of old abandoned buildings. Well, he knew that there was this one building where the pipes had burst in the basement and everything had frozen over. So he got his friends together and they decided they were going to go play hockey. But when they got there, they found a dead body in the basement. In his own words, he said that the body was like a popsicle stick because the legs were sticking out of the ground frozen. But he didn't let that stop him. He continued to play hockey right alongside the dead body. Have you ever been at a point in your life where you got so caught up in the moment you didn't want to be inconvenienced by what was going on around you? Maybe you thought, someone else should take care of this. It's not my problem. Why should I deal with it in the first place? Sounds a lot like the story of the rich man.
Yeah.
Darkness, I won't doubt what you said in the light, and I will not be stranded in my midnight.
Jesus continues on now, filling us in that both the rich man and the poor man die. The poor man is carried by angels to Abraham in heaven. Now we understand that Lazarus truly has been a person in whom God has helped. He's no longer in pain, and he's no longer suffering. He's in heaven. And the rich man is sent to Hades, where he can see Lazarus and Abraham from a distance. The rich man now recognizes Lazarus, calling him by name, asking, Lazarus, come and dip the tip of your finger in water and cool my tongue from the agony of being in the eternal flames of Hades. You talk about role reversals. Could you imagine what Lazarus' response would have been if he'd shouted through the gate to the rich man? Come, give me some bandages, because I'm in agony from all my sores. I wonder what Lazarus was thinking. Now you recognize me? Now you call me by name? It is interesting that the rich man's first thoughts are not asking to be released from Hades, but to be relieved temporarily by Lazarus. He still views Lazarus as inferior to him, as his servant. The rich man wants Lazarus to come from heaven to a miserable place of hell to give him temporary relief. The rich man was living a life of luxury of heaven on earth and would not share in the suffering of Lazarus by taking time out to help him. This story that Jesus tells us is such a powerful story because it has universal significance. The next character in the story is going to grab everyone's attention. It's Abraham, whose name actually means Av, which is father, and Rahim, which is Arabic for nations. So we have the father of nations being introduced into this story. Now, central to Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, they have Abraham in all of their holy books. See, it was through Abraham and his offspring that all the nations would be blessed. There is this indirect reference to Christ himself in this story that Christ is telling. So Christ is sharing himself in the story. Abraham, being the father of nations, is further reflected in this story. You have the rich man who's in Hades, and he's called by Abraham son. He says, son, you had your chance in this life. Now your fortune and Lazarus' fortunes are reversed. And if you haven't noticed, there's this huge chasm between me and you that no one can cross, because once you die, there's no changing where you're going to spend eternity. The rich man now has a terrifying thought enter into his head. He knows he is doomed. And he thinks about the similar lifestyle his family is living to the life that he lived on earth. Once again, he begs for Lazarus' help, for Lazarus to be sent to his father's house to warn them. The rich man still views Lazarus as a servant who can simply be ordered around. Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them." "No, Father Abraham," he said, "but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent." The key verse is Luke chapter 16, verse 31. He said to him, "If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced even if someone rises from the dead." Seems like a shock that they wouldn't even listen to a dead person. But they've become so hard-hearted and desensitized that they would have found a way to rationalize away the dead man's message or the authenticity of whether he actually died or not. It kind of reminds me of the hockey game being played around the dead body in a Detroit warehouse. Becoming so desensitized that we can play a hockey game around a dead body. We see Jesus every day in all kinds of situations. Do we have blinders on? Luke's New Testament readers will immediately think of Jesus and how even his manifest resurrection was not enough to sway the Pharisees from their hardened opposition to the truth that was clearly before them.
The way you live is dangerous. You take me to the edge of trust, but I'll have faith, even if your way is dangerous. You take me to the edge of trust, but I'll have faith, even if your way.
Jesus also tells us of another parable of the sheep and the goats. It's a similar lesson. Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For when I was hungry, you did not feed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me nothing to drink. When I was naked, you did not clothe me. When I was sick and in prison, you did not visit me." And then they will say, "Lord, when were you hungry and we didn't feed you? Or when were you thirsty and we didn't give you anything to drink? When were you naked and we didn't give you clothes? Or you were sick or in prison and we did not visit you?" And then Jesus responded, "To the least of these